Very well. So I see that some more people have joined. Welcome. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roberto Fernandez, and on behalf of the organizing committee of the National Conference for Teachers of English in Costa Rica, I want to welcome you to our next interactive webinar. Today with us is Professor Jonathan Acuña, who is an enthusiast of virtual learning and teaching. He is also the head of curriculum design at Centro Cultural Costarricense Norteamericano, a senior ELT professor at Universidad Latina de Costa Rica, and an online language instructor for LLO, Laureate Languages Online. For more than 7 years, he has been teaching online in synchronous and asynchronous content and language courses. He has also worked on the design and implementation of fully online language courses with the use of learning management systems. Professor Acuña has worked as a language instructor for LLO for over 3 years with students scattered across the Americas and in the university language courses in Peru. He holds a master's degree in education with an emphasis on ELT, an associate's degree from Laureate International Universities in teaching and learning in higher education, and another one in online, hybrid, and blended education. Now, on a lighter note, he's a cat lover, a blog writer, and an amateur photographer and traveler. He's also part of the organizing committee of the National Conference, and here to speak to us today with the presentation called Bearing the End in Mind, How to Virtualize a Language Class, please welcome Jonathan Acuña.
Well, people, thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Roberto. I need to share a different presentation, so just give me a second and we can start. Okay. So I guess we're going to be having a lot of fun paying attention to important concepts this afternoon. So just give me a second to have the right presentation with us. Okay, here we are. Okay. Talking about like the mood for this particular session. Yes, as an amateur photographer, so I've been taking photographs in very interesting places, and this is one of those. And I hope that you like it. Okay, but this is not a session like to be paying attention to photographs, but it's actually to take a look at how to virtualize a language class. And this is like the whole thing in connection to this thing. Well, people, as Roberto said, we are going to be paying attention to a little bit of different things, and through the different assignments, so to say, that we're going to be having to complete during the session, we are going to be working with several different things in connection to virtualization. So you already know, I'm Jonathan Acuña, and as he said, I've been working in this business for quite a long time already. This is what I intend to do with you this afternoon. And this is my webinar's agenda. So we're going to start paying attention to a little bit of comparing face-to-face to virtual teaching. We're going to be having a little discussion in regards to that. We're going to be having some sort of chit chat in which we're going to be talking about planning. I'm going to be trying to demo a class very quickly, so to pay attention to some important things in connection to the virtualization of a class. We will have a discussion. Yes, this is called the lesson analysis of what I'm going to be doing for you. We're going to be having a teamwork exercise, which is connected to you planning a chunk of a class, a little bit of reflection, and as Roberto said towards the end, the Q&A. So you ask your questions, and I hope that I can get you the answers. Okay, people, so I guess we're ready to begin. Are you? Some important thing that I'm going to be doing with you is like, there are going to be moments in which I'm going to be stopping my presentation. And the reason for that is very simple. The reason is that I'm going to be sharing some documents with you in my presentation. These ones that you have here are like different things that I'm going to be sharing with you throughout the presentation. So this is the first thing that I'm going to be doing, and this is important for you to keep in mind. In the chat, I'm going to be placing links for you to take a look at specific things that I want you to do in your groups when we get to work in the breakout rooms. The very first thing that we're going to be doing is analyzing these 3 questions that we have here, in which you and a group of partners are going to be comparing what face-to-face teaching is as opposed to virtual teaching. Okay? For this particular thing, as it is indicated down there, you're going to be having exactly 10 minutes. Okay, so give me a second so I can share with you the documents that I want to share with you, please. All right. Okay, so I need you to go to the chat and I need you to pay attention to the thing that I'm going to be sharing with you. All right? Okay, so you should be getting your file through the chat. So give me a second. Yes. Okay, it's funny that I'm not getting these things in this way. Uh-huh. Okay. I guess to switch to the internet for a moment. So give me a second. All right. Okay. In the meantime, what I'm going to be asking you to do is the following. Okay. I guess I need to recalibrate this thing. So sorry about this. Let me go back to the presentation so you can help me with something very simple, which is to make a photograph of this particular thing. Yes, there is a little bit of a problem here. Okay, so I'm going to be asking you to unintentionally ask you to please make a photograph of this thing here. In the meantime, while you're working, I'm going to be able to check this thing and help you with the thing. Okay, so there are 3 questions that you are going to be discussing with a partner or several partners. Okay, so please make sure that you can make a copy of this. So take a photograph. I will eventually be able to, share the rest of the information with you. So if you are ready, I'm going to be sending you to breakout rooms. And as I said before, you're not going to be spending more than 10 minutes in those breakout rooms. Okay, you're going to be working with a small quantity of people. So people, please join your partners, join your groups. You will have exactly 10 minutes to get there. Please go ahead. I'll be visiting you in a few seconds. Okay, please make sure that you join your partners and you join your groups. Yes, people are returning now to the main room. Good. Okay, just in case, for those of you who are here in the main room, and I don't want to see have a little bit of confusion with the document that I shared. Okay, this is the one, and you can also find it in the chat box, the document that I wanted you to pay attention to, which is the same one that I'm going to be showing you over here. And sorry about the inconvenience before. Okay, the thing is that we have these 3 questions. And the idea was to obviously pay attention to this thing in such a way that we are able to obviously concentrate on this Venn diagram. Because again, when we think a little bit about what's different and what's the same with when you teach face-to-face or in a virtual learning environment, for sure, we're going to be having a lot of overlapping elements. And I think that the elements that you're going to be having outside, which are like different, are going to be the minimum. More than actually paying attention to this and understanding that we need to transition from this face-to-face environment in which we were teaching to a virtual learning environment is to consider this other part of the question, and that was, what seems to be the difference between virtual teaching and virtualized teaching? Because we're talking about 2 different things. What I need you to understand, and that's the reason why I decided to go ahead with this particular webinar, it is because most of us need to remember that what is happening right now, it's virtualized teaching. All of a sudden, you were told, guess what? You need to go home and do some sort of teaching so your students can catch up on the different content that we have to cover through this year. And even though this virtualized teaching might be actually happening in some sort of, let's say, in some sort of medium in which obviously we have some sort of video conferencing elements such as Zoom, such as Google Hangouts, such as other different things, definitely we're going to be paying attention that virtualized teaching is you moving whatever you were doing in the classroom into a virtual teaching environment. But virtual teaching implies that the program, the curricula, had been already devised to be working in a virtual world, not in a face-to-face environment. Bottom line, virtualized teaching is we being abruptly moved from our classrooms into this particular medium. And for me, that's why I decided to include these scissors in the middle there, because it's like separating and making a very important difference. When I teach, for example, my students, the ones that I have right now in Peru, obviously I'm not face to face with them, and whatever I do needs to be done through a video conferencing system such as Zoom. But in your cases, you might be doing other different things that includes using other virtual devices such as videos and any other way of asynchronously working with your students. In other words, not working at the same time, but working in the very specific moments in which the student has access to some sort of, let's say, device that helps them get online. Okay, that's what I wanted to really pay attention to when we said this difference between virtual teaching and virtualized teaching. If you see me seeing in this direction, is because I'm paying attention to this monitor. I have actually in this moment 3 monitors to pay attention to what I'm doing over here. But I want to have another quick discussion with you. This quick discussion is to actually pay attention to these different 3 questions I have here for you. Because in the end, the virtualized teaching implies that whatever we were doing in the classroom needs to be moved, but we need to effectively use the time. Okay, so once again, this is the document. If you want to take a picture of it, it's okay, but I'm going to go ahead and share this with you through the chat. Okay, so I'm going to be asking you to take a look at the next thing. So give me a second so I can copy paste this thing for you. Okay, now I have the link. Let me go back to the chat. So please go to the chat and make sure that you can actually see the document that I'm going to be posting over there for you all. Okay, there it is. It's a Google Drive document, so you can download it if you wish, or you can simply project it directly from the page. Once again, I'm going to be moving you to small rooms, so make sure that you have a chance to pay attention to those questions. And as is indicated, we're going to be working in approximately 10 minutes, and in 10 minutes, you will be back. Please provide as many examples as you can with your actual planning for your virtualized classes. Okay, people, rooms have been opened. Please join your partners, join your groups. Let's get to work, please. Well, it is a shame that some of you were not able to join the discussion groups because there are some interesting,
Jonathan,
yes, sir.
some participants were having internet connectivity issues, and that's why they were not like able to join, like because they kept on connecting and disconnecting. So,
Yeah, I guess it must be because of the storm that is going on.
yeah,
Yeah, where I live, definitely there is a big rain up to this moment. So I know that probably that's going to be affecting a lot of people. I know that in
yes.
different parts of the country, it is quite rainy in this moment. Okay, we just have to wait for some seconds for the rest of the people to come back into the main room so we can actually pay attention to this thing here. Okay, it's just a matter of seconds, 50 more seconds, and everybody will be back. Well, in the meantime, you can continue text messaging, those of you who are over there. Okay, now everyone is back into the main room. The reason why I was asking you these questions, it's not just because we want to test you in the way that you are doing things, but the idea is to make things be, how can I say this? Be more efficient in the things that we are doing. In our planning time, a lot of things should be happening, and this is one of the things that I definitely want to reflect towards the end of this presentation. But definitely there is a big difference when you're planning with a textbook and when you are just provided with certain material that you have to cover along with specific content, and which means that you have vocabulary and grammar to be, studied with the students. But the last question, it's a crucial thing because then it will depend on what role as a teacher I have in my class. If the teacher talking time it's too high, I am the one who is stealing the show. If student talking time it's at its peak, definitely I'm there as a facilitator. Okay, we will go back to this thing later on, especially when we get into that reflection, because this is what I want to do with you right now. Okay, I have nothing to do with National Geographic Learning, but I'm going to be using an example, and I'm going to be switching to a Cambridge University Press example at the end of my session too. But I want you to pay attention to this unit that is called A Typical Day. And in this moment, people, you are going to be my students. And I want to, in the next like 15 minutes or less, I want to try to demo something that could probably happen in more than 1 hour. But because all of you are gifted students, I don't think that I will have any problems with you and working in this activity. Am I right? Yeah, I don't think that we will have any problems at all. Okay, people, now you are my students. Remember that. Okay, well, well, good afternoon, everyone. This is what we are going to be doing this afternoon. We don't have much time, so we have to concentrate on the following 4 different things that we have in our agenda. Keep in mind that the idea is that by the end of our class, you are going to be able to talk about a typical day in your lives. We are going to be paying attention to, we're going to be working a little bit on vocabulary boost, in which we're going to be discussing or getting exposed to daily routine vocabulary. We're going to be having a vocabulary practice in which a dialogue is going to be completed. After that, we have our third language task in which you're going to be interviewing a partner so you can get information about their daily routines. And finally, you're going to be obviously working with them by talking about a typical day in your lives. Are you ready? Okay, people, this is the very first thing that we have in our books, daily routines. And we have here different pictures that obviously match different things that you have. I know that some of you can perfectly manipulate the annotating tool that we have on the part on this, platform. I'm talking about Zoom. So if you could draw a line between a picture and any of the expressions that you have here, I will be more than welcome to see that happening now. Can you help me, please? Okay, anybody? All right, thank you. I can see some of those things. Nice, nice, that's correct. Okay. All right, that's very good. We're still missing some of them. You can repeat if you want, that's not a problem. Whoops. Okay, excellent. Well, people, definitely you are very fast and faster than what I thought. So that means that you're understanding this particular vocabulary. Okay, but now it's my turn to erase everything. Please, let's stop over there if you don't mind. Okay, thank you. Yes, so you were able to obviously trace what these expressions refer when you are paying attention to these pictures. Okay, but now let's take a look at the following thing. Take a look at the following, because in this case, what do you have? It's now this thing that says it's an individual work, and you're going to be working on this. It's on page 17, but you can do it right here if you want. And I want you to pay attention to how am I supposed to complete this little conversations. As you did before, you can also activate the annotating tool and you can type. I'd rather have you type with the text annotating tool that you have over there. And you can complete it for me, please. Could you do that? Okay. I see some movement over there. That's very nice. I'm sorry. Okay, that's not going to happen again. Okay, we're still missing some things. Okay, okay, definitely you were right. Okay, people. Once again, sorry, but I need to raise things. So your answers are correct. Okay, please don't do any more scribbling on the screen if you don't mind. Okay, yes, definitely people, you're understanding. Nice. But now I want you to pay attention to the following thing. Okay, this time around, I'm going to be asking you to do something slightly different. I need you to use your telephones, okay? And with your phones, I want you to make a picture, take a picture of this interview that you have over there. We have a student A and a student B. And what you're going to be doing, because I'm going to be sending you for a few minutes to a breakout room so you can actually interview your partner the questions that you have over there. All right? If you happen to be in a room with more people, take turns asking the questions among yourselves. Okay? Did you take your picture? I hope so. Okay, people, so let's move into our rooms. Let's do it. Okay, join your partners, join your groups. In about 5 minutes, I'm going to be asking you to come back. Please go ahead. Okay, people are coming back in about a minute. So I hope that you have the time of your lives over here by, sharing a little bit about your daily routines. Let me reshare the presentation that I'm using. And there you have it. Okay, now you can see that in a white screen. Okay, once again, most of our partners are going to be coming back in about 30 seconds. For those of you who are already back in the main room, so let me share the document with you. So just in case you also want to keep this particular example of a lesson. Okay, it's just for 10 more seconds and people will be back in the main room. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, excellent. Basically, every single person is back in the main room now, and we're paying attention to this. So just in case, I'm going to be sharing with you the presentation again. The presentation now is in the chat box. Okay, as a students, definitely I need to give you some feedback. And that special feedback is, remember that in these situations, what is it that you were supposed to do? You were supposed to divide who was going to be student A and who student B was supposed to be. So you could be asking questions one to the other. The idea is obviously that you can see that we have different questions so we can get different information. If you were working only two people, then you could have switched roles, and then you can also practice the other things. Okay. Had you been my students in real life, probably we would have paid attention to a little bit of the mistakes that were made. Obviously, when you have 50, well, in this case, there were 40 different breakout rooms, it is very difficult to work with this. But I'm going to be asking you again to behave like students for the next part of this quick demo that we have. And that is talking about a typical day. So we're going to be trying to work in pairs. And in pairs, we're going to be paying attention that once again, we have a student A and a student B. Okay. Again, student A has a different set of questions compared to the ones that student B has. So you need to be asking your partners the information that these questions imply. Okay. So once again, people, I'm going to be asking you to work with the same partners. You're going to be working exactly with the same people. Please make sure that everybody's going to be trying to activate the camera and the microphone so you can interact with your partners. Once again, And I'm going to be giving you more than 5 minutes. So please, let's get to work. Please join your partners, join your groups, please. All right. Yes, it's a matter of seconds and everybody will be now back in the main room. Yes. Okay. Well, everybody's back now in the main room. It's good. Well, people, I also have to give you some feedback. This time around, well, you were doing things correctly, especially because when we have these things, these are not questions. We had questions here, if you noticed, but in this other case, you needed to fully formulate the question. Like, what time do you get up? Right? What time do you have breakfast? Or do you visit your relatives or friends? With the present situation, probably this is not happening right now, but assuming that this is not going to be the end of the world, right? We're going to go back and be able to visit our relatives and friends in the future. Okay, but definitely most of the things that you did it nicely. So what did we do today? Well, basically, we were paying attention to this because the idea was that you were able to talk about a typical day in your life. And that's why you as students were provided with vocabulary practice. You were discussing questions about your daily routines and formulating questions to talk about a typical day in your lives. Okay, this is the end of the demo. I know it was like in a rush, but this is not a real class, as you know. And now the idea is, let's talk a little bit about the lesson itself. Okay? And once again, I know that you are like pinpointing because you're going like from here to there, like if you were ping pong, you know, balls. But we are going to be analyzing this simple demo that I had for you with 10 simple statements that I have over here and a question. Okay, so take a look at that. It's a lesson analysis. And I want you to, based on what you experience with your partners, decide whether something is true or something is false. Okay, let me stop sharing so I can go and get the file for you. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, and here it is. Okay, so let me go back into, please, can you go to the chat box? In the chat box, I'm gonna be then sharing this document with you. It's the same thing that I was showing you. So could you please make sure that you can open it, download it, have it ready for discussion in your groups. So this time around, this is supposed to be a 15-minute discussion. I think we don't need that much time because especially I want you to have the chance of working with your partners and come up with something for your current teaching. People, I'm going to be giving you about 7 minutes instead of 15. Please join your partners, join your groups. Let's get to work and discuss those things. Tell me, are these things true or false? And pay attention to the last question. Well, definitely everybody is back in the main room, and I hope that you had a good chance of criticizing the lesson positively and negatively. It doesn't matter, actually. What is important is to generate some discussion. So the idea behind this is that you could actually see or go through the demo in your minds so you could support your answers, and especially when we were getting to this specific thing. Now, if you were asking me as an instructor, what was planned first in this lesson? In this lesson, what was planned first was the terminal goal. What is it that I wanted students to do at the end? And why was it done in that way? Because I needed to have the end in my mind. So this is not about going through the book and doing a lot of exercises without having in mind why we want students to do those things. We want them to produce something. Of course, this particular lesson, we need to understand, it's for very basic students. So students still were very controlled in the production, but freer at the end, right? So see, it took time, or it takes time. Like in my case, it took time, for example, to get students to this point to be able to produce something. But in real life, it also takes time. But the idea is that as an instructor, I'm there to help facilitate the learning and create activities in which I can see, I can visualize, I can make the learning visible. Okay, now I'm going to show you something because this is like the fun part of our session. The fun part is to plan a chunk of a class. Okay? Remember that I have nothing to do with any publishing house, so now I'm switching to something that we use at the university, which is Touchstone online course. And I want you to pay attention to the terminal goal for lesson A. Talk about your free time, similar to the thing that you were doing with this other book. What you are going to be provided with is the vocabulary preview with time expressions, some other expressions connected to these things that we have over here, prepositions, you know, like let's talk about like fixed expression used in English, prefabricated expressions, if you want to call them in that way. I'm also giving you a survey that is actually included in the book, and this other thing that is called a free time survey. You see, this is like, and this is like this. The idea is, how can you modify these things so we can generate production for the students? Okay? Can you please go to the chat? In the chat box, you have exactly the same pictures that I was showing you from this online course by Cambridge University Press, the Touchstone book. Okay? I hope that you're able to open it and that you are able to download it or have it ready for your work with your peers. This time around, you're not going to be working with the same people. I'm going to be moving people around so you have the chance to talk to other people. But remember what you have to have in mind. The idea is, okay, I already have the terminal goal there. Talk about your free time. Using this material, this new material, what can be done so we can generate free, quote unquote, or freer production from our A1 students. Okay, people, this time around, I'm going to be giving you about 15 minutes so you can have some ample discussions. In the end, you don't need to show me anything, but it's to apply what I'm saying to you. Let's see what I want students to do at the end, and then I can plan backwards. Okay? Breakout rooms are open. Please feel free to join them now. Please go ahead. Okay, basically everyone is back in the main room. And I hope that you have a chance at having some productive conversations about this. Again, the idea is, as I said before, that we already have a terminal goal here. And that's the reason why we get to see these things in our books or in any other kind of guidelines that are provided to you. So you can actually work with these things to better, start working on classes that you want to have with your students, of course. All right. So the idea was like, just because this is in the book and this is still like not that productive with the students, what can we do to tweak, to switch these things around so we can actually make these things more productive for the students? And merging activities from the book can also make sense. Sure. Okay. We still have some time because I want to get to a point in which we can have a simple discussion, all of us. But before we go into that specific thing, I want to tell you something like what I already included here, that is, what is it that I have learned in my virtual teaching to virtualize a class? Well, the very first thing, people, is that we teachers must focus on facilitation, not on presentation of contents, okay? That there must be student active participation. They are the ones who have to have the protagonist role, not the teacher. And that also implies that whatever we're going to be doing, we're leading them to have frequent learner participation. From controlled, yes, to freer language production. So they have a sense that they can manipulate the language. This thing about like, like getting people into groups, conforming this group, heterogeneity is a very important thing. What I like about Zoom is obviously the fact that I can simply randomize, okay, the way in which groups are obviously created. And I hope this could also happen in a face-to-face environment, so people are not always working with the same people, because there's more to learn from other people in a classroom. Let's keep in mind that our tasks should be collaborative, so they can actually on a one-to-one basis or in small groups, obviously interact and produce something. Your objectives should reflect an achievable goal, right? The instructor also has to be what I call digital fluent. What does that mean? Able to manipulate the system he or she is using. If you are not sure how to use something, don't play with it, because then problems can happen. You see, I was able to fix the problem that I had at the beginning to make the rest of this presentation go smoothly. Hadn't I been prepared, probably a lot of things would have happened. Constant and timely feedback is also necessary for everything students are doing. Guess what? We have to give them feedback. Well done. Don't forget to do this. Hey, you forgot this thing. You forgot this other thing. Don't forget that this is pronounced this way. Okay? And of course, time management. If you say 10 minutes, it has to be 10 minutes. Otherwise, students will simply do, let's say, some other things instead of being on task. But the most important thing to do is not to forget to always bear the end in mind. What is it that you want students to do at the end that can be reflected on what they could be doing with the real language outside the classroom in a place where English is spoken? You see, this is what I have learned in all these years, okay, working online. And I want to go here in order to listen to questions that we may have, because we still have some 7 minutes before this session is over. Okay, I don't know, Roberto, you can help me with any
Absolutely.
question or anything.
So guys, as usual, if you have questions, please go ahead and jot them down in the chat. Ana Marvantes has a question. I'm going to go ahead and unmute her. Ana, go ahead and unmute your microphone so that you can talk to us.
Yes, hi, Profe. I hope you are okay. I want to ask if there is a way in Zoom to pre-set or pre-arrange groups. For example, in the school where I work for, we have the licenses in Zoom.
Uh-huh.
But I want to know, since I work always with the same group, if I can start my sessions from Monday to Friday, always with the same groups every time I send them to breakout rooms, or it's not possible. I always have to assign them randomly or manually.
No, and for that you would have to do it manually because, for example, if you want, let's say, Roberto, Ginger, and Carla to work always together along with Juan Carlos and Evelyn, you need to do it that way.
Okay.
Otherwise, the system will randomly assign people to different groups.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jonathan, we have another question. They're asking us to please, if you could please show the summary slide of your presentation one more time.
The what, excuse me?
The summary slide of your presentation.
I'm going to be sharing this with you in a moment, so don't worry. Before we finish today, I'll be giving you the presentation. Don't worry, don't worry. It's going to be there. Just hold on.
They're asking, where can we get the tool used to show the stand clock at the bottom?
I found that in the moving GIFs in Google. That's what I found. Yes.
Great. We have another question. Let me see. How many students would be an ideal number for developing these lessons?
Okay, I guess this is a question that I have listened being asked in other different sessions. At the place where I work, I'm talking about LLO or Laureate Languages Online, we tend to have small groups. When I say small, we are barely working with some 15 students. And I say barely because sometimes it could be less than 15 or slightly more than 15, which I think is still a manageable group of students. Ideally, what people have always suggested is, guess what? Around 12 students.
Awesome. We have a question from Carlos Prendas. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute him. Carlos, you can unmute your microphone.
Thank you, Roberto. Well, actually, it's not a question. I just want to thank Jonathan for such a professional, pertinent, and accurate presentation, not only on his delivery, but also in the valuable recommendations to bear in mind. I've noticed that most of the participants had the pleasure of being your student, and frankly, my dear friend, it is a privilege to be part of the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos.
All right, we have a question from Liana Rojas. Hello, Liana. It says, Jonathan, what research articles would you suggest with findings of English language learning in virtual context?
That's a very interesting question. I know that a lot is being generated, and I suggest that you pay attention to what Laureate Languages has done or have done with the University of Cambridge. They have a venture, like a joint venture site where they actually start publishing and generate this kind of sessions and webinars at the same as conferences for people who are interested in online learning, virtual teaching, virtualized teaching, blended learning, etc., all these different things. And I know that every month they are publishing something. What I cannot recall is exactly what the name is, but if you write there, Laureate Languages plus University of Cambridge joint venture, you're going to be finding this particular thing that I'm talking about.
Awesome. We have time for one last question, and that will
Yes,
be
sir.
for Edwin Alvarez. Edwin, go ahead. Edwin, you need to unmute your
Good afternoon. Good
Hello.
afternoon. Nice to meet you, Jonathan. My question is the following. What do you think about the structure of the planning when developing such a great class like you just presented? I mean, always in the past we've said you have to develop a class with this structure. Now it was changed again. In my opinion, we don't need to, let's say, to be strict on the structure, but But I mean, for me, the most important is the achievement of the goals, as you said. I don't know if I am wrong.
No, no, definitely not. Again, I always remember this thing that people used to say before, especially my grandma, and sorry for using in Spanish, but todo mundo tiene diferentes formas de matar pulgas. Am I right? So in the end, as you said, there are different ways to achieve goals. And I think, like, again, if whatever you are doing in terms of planning is making you achieve those goals with your students, thumbs up. If something is not making your students get there, something needs to be arranged. And this arrangement probably is going to give you the success that you are needing.
All
And
right.
I'm afraid that it's time
to wrap up.
to wrap up. Exactly.
All right. So, Jonathan, thank you very much. And on behalf of the organizing committee of the National Conference for Teachers of English in Costa Rica, I would like to thank you for the time and for your presentation today and for your willingness to share and contribute to the success of this online event. We're going to give Jonathan a big, warm virtual applause.